Pacific Fire Ring, what it is and why you need to know about it. At the point when the words ring, mountain, fountain of liquid magma, and fire are found in one expression, it isn't at all essential about courageous hobbits conveying the ring of power to Orodruin. Maybe it is just a zone of expanded structural movement on a planetary scale, for this situation, the Pacific Ring of Fire. Also, in the event that you believe that the Pacific Ocean is far away and accordingly it has nothing to do with you, you are incorrect. Meet Orodruin. Goodness, that is, the dynamic New Zealand well of lava Ruapehu. The last ejection happened in 2007, a full individual from the Pacific Ring of Fire. What it is. The Pacific Ring of Fire, otherwise called the Pacific Volcanic Ring of Fire, the Pacific Ring of Fire or basically the Ring of Fire, is called covering the whole Pacific Ocean zone with a length of around 40,000 km, in which various quakes and volcanic ejections happen. This, as per the U.S. Geological Survey, is about 90% of all seismic tremors on the planet and 81% of the most impressive. With volcanic emissions, a comparable picture, which isn't unexpected, 452 volcanoes have a place with the Ring of Fire, multiple quarters of the dozing fire-breathing mountains on the planet. Dozing individuals implies the individuals who have not ejected over the most recent 1,000 years, however may well wake up. More awful, of the 25 biggest emissions in the previous 11,700 years, just 3 have happened outside the Pacific Ring of Fire. Why it occurs. Since the ring is shaped by a few zones of structural movement without a moment's delay, where one lithospheric plate plunges under another, as the maritime lithosphere develops. Also, where there is structural action, there are its different outer appearances, volcanic ejections and tremors, in addition to other things. All the more accurately, submarine maritime plates sink under the mainland moving towards them. This is called subduction. The biggest such subduction zone is the East Pacific, which incorporates the submarine lithospheric plates Cocos and Nazca, steadily leaving under the mainland South American plate. In the western piece of the Pacific Ocean, the zone can be followed by a chain of volcanoes, from Kamchatka to the Kuril Islands, at that point to Japan, the Philippines, New Guinea, the Solomon Islands and afterward to New Zealand and from that point to Antarctica. In the east, the ring is set apart by volcanoes in the upper east of Antarctica, Tierra del Fuego, in the Andes, Cordillera and the Aleutian Islands. Perusing this portrayal or taking a gander at the guide, it is anything but difficult to see that, specifically, a huge piece of the western shore of North America is absent. Does this imply the ring is broken and there is no structural action? Not in any way. It is accessible everywhere throughout the ring and shows itself specifically as tremors, from little, observable just to delicate gadgets, to huge ones. Along these lines, the popular San Andreas Fault, which lies underneath the California coast, is likewise shaped by the moderate sinking of the maritime plate under the mainland. What's more, this is a territory where little seismic tremors and now and again enormous ones happen routinely. What do we need? Furthermore, reality, it would appear where there is the Pacific Ocean and where the center portion of Russia. On a similar planet, review. What's more, there have been times in history when occasions in the Pacific Ring of Fire reacted, remembering for the European landmass. Thus, on April 5, 1815, on the island of Sumbawa, which is a piece of Indonesia today, the ejection of Tambora fountain of liquid magma started, considered today the biggest in the whole history of humankind. A blast was heard 2,600 km from the well of lava, and debris fell in any event 1,300 km from Tambora. In this manner, this ejection was appraised at 7 calls attention to, out of 8, on a size of volcanic emissions, VEI. At that point 150 km of debris were tossed to a stature of 43 km and step by step spread all through the world's climate. As of now in the late spring and harvest time of that year, brilliant shading nightfalls, falling on the canvases of contemporary painters, and long sundown were seen in London, and the following, 1816 turned into a year without summer, in Europe and North America, when a strangely long winter, low temperatures consistently, vivid downpours with hail, tempests and floods prompted extreme yield disappointment. As indicated by researchers, the casualties of the emission were straightforwardly 11,000 individuals, and another 49,000 experienced long-haul outcomes, pestilence, sicknesses and appetite, with the goal that the complete number of survivors of this ejection was 71,000. During the ejection of 1883, Tambora's neighbor in the area of Krakatau spring of gushing lava, envisioned, detonating, obviously made the most intense sound in mankind's history. Cotton was heard on the island of Rodriguez, today has a place with Mauritius, a good ways off a very nearly 5,000 km, an infrasonic blast waves circumnavigated the globe a few times. What's more, with this sound, Krakatau crushed the island on which it was found. Presently there are a few islands and an abundance of a similar name not in its place, and furthermore discharged such a great amount of debris into the air that the temperature in the northern hemisphere diminished by 1.2 degrees C the following year, and California has a record precipitation. The cinders, dissipated in the climate, gave the nightfalls an unordinary red tint. One such dusk should be caught in Edward Munch's shout. In excess of 36,000 individuals became survivors of that ejection. Also, Krakatau is still dynamic. Need a more up-to-date model. If it's not too much trouble, recollect how, in 2010, the emission of an Icelandic well of lava with a critical news broadcaster brought Eyjafjallajökull deadened trips over Europe for a few days, making misfortunes the carrier business in excess of €1 billion and obliterating plans for very nearly 10 million travelers. So then Eyjafjallajökull tossed into the environment just 0.14 cubic meters km of debris. 4 focuses on the Vi scale, contrast and Tambora. What's more, albeit a significant number of specialists question that and the airspace in the debris conveyance zone was fundamental, the account of British Airways Flight No. 9 and 2 other traveler aircrafts, nearly murdered in 1982 because of a gathering with the debris of a neighborhood spring of gushing lava dispersed noticeable all around over Java Galunging, common flight recalls well. Volcanic emissions are by all account not the only danger to the entire world exuding from the Pacific Ring of Fire. Quakes can likewise bring numerous difficulties not exclusively to the nations adjoining the ring, yet to the entirety of mankind. Thus, as indicated by scientists, an enormous seismic tremor in the San Andreas shortcoming zone is inescapable, since subduction of one plate underneath another around there makes strain in the world's outside, and the more it doesn't release, the more prominent the vitality collects. What's more, there have been no huge seismic tremors here for quite a while, in any event since 1989. The aftereffect of the arrival of vitality gathered in the subduction zone is plainly exhibited by the San Francisco seismic tremor of 190.7 with a greatness of 7.7, which surrendered destitute over to 300,000 residents, out of 410,000 individuals, and which drove, in addition to other things, to relocations of the dirt along the San Fault Andreas at 6.0-8.5 meters. It is expected that the extent of such a tremor can arrive at 9, out of 9.5, and it can pulverize a noteworthy piece of California. We quickly note that on the off chance that California were a free state, at that point it would involve 5th spot on the planet regarding economy. Envision what will befall the world economy in the event that you expel 1/5 or significantly more from it, and that 1/5, which, in addition to other things, falls on the biggest innovation organizations. We likewise bring up that, for instance, the conclusion of just one of the most significant world vehicle center points, the ports of Los Angeles or Long Beach, is fit for making trillion-dollar misfortunes the worldwide economy and incapacitating world exchange merely days. Ships cruising from Southeast Asia to the U.S. coast, one of the busiest vehicle ocean passageways, won't have the option to empty on schedule and go further along the course. Producers won't have the option to dispatch merchandise. Stockrooms will flood. What's more, the San Andreas flaw, we note, goes in the quick region of Los Angeles, and a significant tremor will in all probability be joined by a tidal wave. What the torrent is prepared to do, we saw in 2004. At that point, we review, due to the most remarkable submerged seismic tremor in the northern Indian Ocean, a disastrous tidal wave emerged, slaughtering at any rate 300,000 individuals and coming to even around 7,000 km toward the South African city of Port Elizabeth. The Pacific Ring of Fire additionally catches the domain of Russia. The greater part of our volcanoes situated in Kamchatka and the Kuril Islands have a place with it, and records for 8.3% of the world's dynamic volcanoes. A large number of them normally and observably eject. For instance, the most elevated pinnacle of Russia outside the Caucasus, the Kluchevskaya Sopka fountain of liquid magma, imagined roughly 4,800 meters, its tallness changes because of structural and volcanic action, last genuinely emitted in 2013. One of the outcomes of that ejection was the presentation of the red aviation color code on the ICAO scale, suggesting the presence of the most noteworthy peril to flight. Simultaneously, Kluchevskaya Sopka isn't the most dynamic spring of gushing lava in the locale and is substandard in this pointer to the Karimskaya Sopka, found close by. Where are the biggest dynamic volcanoes of the Pacific Ring of Fire? In the Andes, this is the longest mountain go on Earth, extending over the South American mainland for 8,900 km, incorporates 4 volcanic zones, including the most elevated dynamic, though torpid, Ojos del Salado fountain of liquid magma, 6,893 meters. In Mexico, there is substantially more dynamic than the Ojos del Salado Popocatépetl well of lava, 5,426 meters, which is considered the most perilous on the planet, since in its prompt region there are numerous settlements, including the urban agglomeration that has created around the Mexican capital Mexico City, with a populace of in excess of 20 million individuals. It is around 70 kilometers from the spring of gushing lava. In the northwest of North America, to be specific in the Cascade Mountains, extending from the Canadian area of British Columbia through the U.S. territory of Washington to Oregon. There are 13 huge volcanoes here, including St. Helens, which organized an enormous and exceptionally pleasant emission in 1980. In the Aleutian Islands in Alaska, 52 volcanoes are situated on 14 huge and 55 little Aleutian Islands, including the most dynamic Cleveland, Okmok and Akutan. What's more, along the nearby subduction zone, the submerged Aleutian Channel with a profundity of in excess of 7,600 meters, quakes normally happen. For instance, the second biggest ever, the Great Alaskan Tremor of 1964 with an extent of 8.4. In the course of recent years, Cleveland spring of gushing lava on Chuginadak Island ejected multiple times. It appeared as though the emission of 2006 from the International Space Station. In Japan, we are discussing Mount Fuji. Indeed, this isn't just a place of worship and an image of the nation, yet additionally the most visited mountain on the planet, yet in addition a functioning fountain of liquid magma that ejected once and for all in 1707. In Indonesia, here, notwithstanding the as of now referenced Tambors 2,850 meters, and Krakatau, there are likewise around 130 volcanoes that are a piece of the Pacific Ring of Fire, of which 76 ejected a sum of in excess of multiple times throughout the entire existence of perceptions. By the quantity of volcanoes, Indonesia drives the world. In New Zealand, one can't resist the opportunity to review Mount Ruapehu, 2,797 meters, as of now appeared over, the most noteworthy pinnacle of the North Island of the nation, featuring in the Lord of the